What is the difference between living ethically and living virtuously? More simply, what's the difference between ethical and virtuous?
Okay. Now, in the book you'll find, and if you look it up in the dictionary, if you look up Webster's, it's pretty much the same definition. Ethics and virtue, pretty much the same. In the book, I divide them out. And I did it this way. There's a Latin term called malum prohibitum. And there's another Latin term called malum in se. Malum prohibitum means that you transgress, and I took that from you, I love that, to transgress the customs or mores or laws, okay?
So running the stop sign is malum prohibitum.
Yeah. It's not, but malum in se is something that is right in and of itself. It's righteous. So if I have to admit, I exceeded speed limit getting up here, that would be malum prohibitum.
Right.
If I use the wrong fork at a formal dinner, that would be malum prohibitum.
Sure.
But what we do is we relate to each other according to God's law. That is written in stone. You want to be virtuous, where you love people, you respect people, you show gratitude to people, you work hard. There's only two things in life. This is, you may find more, but two things in life that we are absolutely responsible for, that we absolutely control. That's our effort and our attitude.
We see this model in Jesus' conversation with the rich young ruler, the
Yes.
Pharisee.
That's
All of these rules, malum prohibitum, I've kept since my youth up. So Jesus asked him for more, for a commitment to God's law through giving away his resources or being a better neighbor. I think you shared with us really helpfully. What do you think most people misunderstand about what it means to live a virtuous life?
I think, and I mentioned that in the book also, that it's not something that you just tell the child. Say, you be honest. You be, great. It's something you have to live, you have to teach, you have to constantly. The three rules of learning are repetition, repetition, repetition. Okay. So I think we sometimes say, well, I told them that. No, you have to explain it. They have to understand it. They have to, bury it in their hearts. And it has to be done over and over and over and over. Otherwise, when they graduate high school and they hit the world, are they going to be prepared to face it? When God told Job, after Job had gone through all that, finally God spoke. And he said, gird up your loins like a man.
Right.
Okay. Another way of putting that is, Job, you got to put your big war britches on. This is going to be a hard thing to understand, but you got to be able to do it. And the kids, from the time they're little, need to be trained as the things get harder and harder and harder and harder to deal with. So when they face rejection or grief or difficulties or tragedy when they're 25, they've already practiced their whole life how you handle this, how you take this.
And you're underscoring the patience that we have to have as the people who are responsible for teaching.
Yes.
We see this in the life of our Lord, who says to the disciples over and over again, I've told you. I've told you.
Exactly.
Oh, ye of little faith. This kind of thing you can only do by praying. I've told you. How long do I have to be with you? I've explained this to you. But he's committed to teaching patiently, even if they're not committed to learning thoughtfully. And that's a virtue that we need to teach virtue, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. You have to be patient. You can't beat it into them. You can't compel them. They have to want to do it, and that's what Jesus did. He was very patient. He said, they're getting there. They're getting there. They're getting better.
What do you think is the biggest challenge to leading a virtuous life, both for parents and for children in the contemporary world?
That everything is against you. Everything is against you. The odds are against you. The world, Satan, everything has conspired to rob you of your children and their virtue. So that's the reason you have to be very patient and methodical, and do it over and over and over. In the Navy, we called it, you do it step by miserable step. You just keep going. You keep hammering it. How do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time.
Just keep going. That's right.
I'm grateful for something you said as a pastor, and we're drawing to a close, and we'll see if we have some questions in the room. I'm grateful for something you said as a pastor. It's a matter of arithmetic that we don't often think about. At most, I get as a pastor 2 hours a week. Now, our members know that I don't preach for an hour, and that Bible study is typically an hour. And so that between my Bible study lecture, which is 30 to 40 minutes, and my Sunday morning sermon, which is 25, unless it's 28 and I'm feeling real good, it's maybe an hour that I get. It's maybe an hour that we spend gathered listening to preaching and teaching. It's no more than 2 hours a week. We spend so much more time watching TV. We spend so much more time engaging with the culture.
Right.
And so we have to be committed to what we've gathered to study for these last 4 weeks, being spiritually formed. We have to be aware of all of the ways that we can drift away from our commitment to God and from our commitment to the church if we're not careful. And we certainly have to be committed to modeling what that looks like for our children and for our grandchildren. The picture in Deuteronomy is clear. The only way that the next generation learns who God is that they're actively taught.